So, welcome everybody who is listening. I'm Marnie Barranco, and I'm here with Becky Vanis. And
Yay.
we just, occasionally like to pop on and talk about whatever happens to be up in that particular moment or that particular day, which I love because, um, how many of us like try to create our lives by deciding all A, B, C, D, E, F, G, all the steps, and then how we're going to get there. But to do that actually requires that you conclude the pathway and then you check out and go on autopilot, and it never works. So I love Becky's willing to get on with me, and we're just like, hey, what's up today? Like, what's the thing in the universe today? And then we can look at it and talk about it. And so we were chatting a little bit before we hit the go live button, and we were just talking about judgment. And that kind of for both of us has been up in our world. And I would say both from like the judging self, but also on the receiving end of somebody else delivering judgment at you, and kind of how to, I guess let's start with the being delivered at you energy. And what's interesting about judgment is it doesn't always match the words that someone's saying. So sometimes you're in a conversation with somebody and you're like, you all of a sudden have this heavy, and you feel like you've been like blasted or attacked or annihilated or just shredded. Like there's this sense of what just happened, because the words that are actually being spoken are not necessarily the you do this and you do that and this is what's wrong with you here. The words are not necessarily words of judgment, but the energy of judgment, when it's there, we perceive it, and it creates this like this contracted kind of sense in our world. And it can be confusing because you go away and you're like, why do I feel like shit right now? That was, maybe not the most uplifting thing they were talking about, but it wasn't an actual onslaught or attack verbally to me.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
We've been talking like I was kind of stuck in like the yuck.
And you get like, you're still carrying it around. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and, so one question that's an awesome question to ask too is, am I just aware of what's going on in their world? And, I would say like with that, because Becky, you were talking about being aware of, or all of a sudden having like, I'm judging my body. I don't normally judge my body. Why am I judging my body? That kind of going on. So I wonder though, the whole good standard question of who does this belong to? Is it even actually mine?
Oh, that
And,
one.
that one, that's like simple and easy and that we forget sometimes. But when you look at the world, and I mean, just even look at like the pragmatics of people are staying home more. There's so many conversations. Oh my God, I've gained 20 pounds. Oh my God, am I drinking too much? Oh my God, my kids play video games too long. It's terrible. They're going to have no brain left, and they're going to be like on the couch for the rest of their 500 pounds and not productive members of society. But all the changes in the world that have, slowed things down and shut things down has required people to do things different. And how much more are people judging their choices? And if you've listened to anything, you maybe have heard me say this, but one of Brendan Watt is an access consciousness facilitator. And one thing that he says, a lot of brilliant things, but one thing that he said that just really, really stuck with me, he said, it's never the choice that decays your future. It's the judgment of the choice that decays your future. So how many times do we make the choice and then we start to go into, that was a bad choice. That was really not a good choice. If I keep making that choice, this is what's going to happen. I'm going to weigh 300 pounds or whatever the thing is. But so if we didn't judge our choices, if we made them and truly were free to make them and didn't turn around and then start to judge the choices.
Yeah. Like what else would be possible?
Yeah.
It was
What else would
interesting
be?
too, because we had a cool thing kind of occur. We were with one of our friends this weekend, and the next day, like she's like, I drank more than I have in 4 years. Like I haven't and she's like, now I feel like I have anxiety. Like I feel like, how like then you go through like all these like, why did I do that? And and I'm not doing that again. I'm never drinking again. And I was like, well, let me ask you a question. And so what I asked her, I was like, and I heard this Dane say this before somewhere. It was like, instead of being like, I'm never doing that again because it's the judgment, the contraction. Right. I was like, well, I wonder how much more you could drink today. And she just started laughing
Yeah.
Because when we go into the judgment of, and whether it's food,
Yeah.
like what you're talking
Yeah.
about, or you're drinking, or whatever it is for you, and you're like, oh, that was too much. I'm not doing that again. I'm not doing that again. And then to be like, well, I wonder how much more I can do of that. And it gave you like, took you out of the space of judgment into even like choice, or it just opened it up and her eyes lit up and she's like, oh my gosh, thank you.
Yeah.
How much do we judge? And then it contracts us. Like what you said, it's never the choice. It's, did you say the judgment of the choice?
It's the judgment of the choice that
Judgment of the
decays.
choice.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, because what you just said, the moment you judge it, you take yourself out of choice and you've locked yourself in. And so what that question was you were inviting her to turn it up, which doesn't mean she will, but she took off the judgment of, I must stop myself. I must control myself. I shouldn't. And you took that off by inviting her to choose more, which all that did was brought her back to true choice, which it's the whole funny thing about like, habits and patterns and things we can't stop. It's when we judge it, you have to keep fighting against the judgment. So you keep doing the same things over and over. It's when you go, oh, what if I turned it up? Then you brought yourself back to choice. You no longer have to choose it. If you tell yourself you cannot, you have to, because it's the way we're wired. Tell me I can't. Tell me it's wrong. Tell me I shouldn't. Now I have to do it.
Yeah.
It's just a thing we do. But if you set yourself free and went, oh, I could actually turn it up. Oh, now I have choice again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
maybe. And yeah.
Yeah. Every day I wonder, like how much more I can add. And I like, even when I get that I have so much going on, I've even been using that with that where, like, oh, this is too much, or like, wow, everybody's, tugging at me. I'm like, well, I wonder how much more I can add. I wonder how much more. And it's interesting by like what you said, by doing that, it actually creates ease.
Yeah. Well, because we're trying to manage everything. So whether it's that I drank too much yesterday, so now I need to make sure I don't drink that much ever again. I'm trying to manage me. I'm trying to manage my drinking. When everybody's pulling on me and tugging on me and there's more things to do than I can keep up with, I want to shrink it and make it smaller so it's a manageable size.
Oh.
So we try, so we impose the things. But if you turned it up, and it's the opposite of what we feel like we should do, also with judgment. I was delivered a whole lot of judgment the other day, and I noticed what I wanted to do was go smaller, like make myself smaller so I could manage the judgment and somehow wrestle with the judgment, somehow sort out the judgment so I could let it go, but that never works. So in the face of judgment, turn it up. So it wasn't until like, all right, I'm going to be with this. And instead of trying to manage it and shrink, I'm going to turn it up. Everything that you are hurling at me, and it's not a fight with that person. This is just me within myself being with the judgment that was delivered, going, everything you hurled at me, you think that's bad? Let me show you how much more of that I can be. And again, it's not, let me call you up and tell, no, energetically though, I'm going to make the choice to not shrink, diminish me. I will turn me up and never turn me down. I don't have to manage me either, so that I'm tameable enough for you to deal with. Sorry, not tameable.
I love that.
Sorry, not sorry.
Yeah, even now coming into this, it's really shifting everything for me. Like, it's like the never give up, the never give in, like the never quit. And if we're truly like, when an infinite being chooses us, an infinite being is limitless.
Yeah.
Wow. And you have limitless choices.
Yeah.
Sorry, I know you get it when you get it, but it's I've been stuck in the yuck even for like 3-4 days, and it's just like interesting. Yeah.
Well, and so with that, like, how much am I trying to restrict and limit me to make somebody else comfortable, to make myself comfortable where I've decided I'm wrong? So what if we didn't restrict us? And every time we thought we should restrict us, we turned it up. Yeah.
Well, I love when they talk, even Gary Douglas talked about judgment before, where he's like, I just stopped it. Like, I recognize that judgment is destructive. It's
not real. And it's
not
real. I mean, it's a fiction. It's a false story. It's a made up story. It's not real. The ones you hurl at yourself, the ones I hurl at myself, the ones we hurl at each other, the ones we're on the receiving end of, not real. Fictional, made up story.
What's a tool that you use, Marnie, like just to make that demand, like when judgment comes up and just to not do it, like what?
Well, so one thing is if it's sticking me in any way, the judgment I'm giving to myself or that's being like sent my direction, if it's sticking me in any way, then there's somewhere in my universe that I have aligned and agreed that it must be true. And we're so good at that. We're so good. Oh, because we wouldn't, if you're the person who would never go to someone and just hurl meanness at them, you kind of go, well, then you go looking for where they must be true in the meanness they delivered to you, because you would never do that unless you really felt like it was required, because you truly, you just wouldn't do it. Actually, I don't think you'd ever do it. So you're like, oh, I don't understand delivering meanness, because I would never deliver meanness like that. So this must be true. So what I love to do though is go, so if this wasn't true, and if I let go of my conclusions that this was true, then what would I know? It's undefining judgment. If it wasn't this, then what would it be? And I'm not asking if it wasn't this, then what would I be? So I can go find a new meaning, because that's just another judgment. I'm unsticking the judgment by, I've concluded that this must be real and true somewhere. But if it wasn't, what else would I know? So it just sort of diffuses the solidity that it must be true into possibilities of there's something else available here.
I love that. Today is undefining judgment. Wow.
Yeah. And I do, in the face of judgment, turn it up. It's like, wow, I'm not being me when there's any contraction in my world. I'm not being me when I'm wrestling with any judgment, mine or somebody else's. So how can I turn me up? And where can I turn me up? And where can I choose more? And what's the most extreme thing I could choose to bust all of this out and go back to that space of me, which is ease and joy.
Yeah.
And all those yummy things.
I love that.
Yeah. Yes, thank you, Selena. If it wasn't this, what would it be? What else do I know? Because we're so taught to navigate our whole life through conclusion and deciding and conclusion and deciding and conclusion and deciding. And then we lock it in, and then that's what we get more of. But if we ask the question, curious, wonder, if it wasn't that, then what?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, this was an easy one today.
This was, it's so funny because when we started chatting before we hopped on live, it was this, how are you? What's up in your world? It's a little bit like this. Yeah.
Well, what's so cool about doing these is like coming on and just asking, then if it's up for us, it's probably, some other people probably are, looking at the yuck too. So thank you for coming on here and doing this.
Oh, thank you too. And thank you to everybody for listening.
Yeah.
And we'll see you another time.
We'll see you another time. Bye, everybody. Thanks.
Bye.